Channel open. Now let's get one thing straight between you and I. February 14th is a hallmark invented fakakta holiday designed to make people spend money in a month where they never spend money, hence why weddings are so cheap in February. Happy Valentine's Day! I'm Sheyne. Welcome back to Trek Continuum. And in the tradition of it being the holiday for lovers, we're going to talk about Star Trek lovers. Now, recently, StarTrek.com sent out their email about the best Star Trek couples, leaving off some of the best ones there have been, and of course focusing on the modern day ones. But we're going to go through a lot of them today. So, little criteria. First, we're going to, for the most part, exclude one-offs. One episodes where they were completely head over heels in love, and then the next week there was absolutely no repercussions. You never would have known it would have happened whatsoever. Some of them will be mentioned in one of the categories, which is the what could have been category. So we'll go through it one by one. Some honorable mentions, and then we're going to go into the WTF couples, ones that just didn't work. Then we're going to go into the ones that I wish you could have spent more time with and seen their full potential get realized. Then if I was a writer, what couples, what characters I would have put together if I was in the writer's room that never did get together. And then finally, the countdown to my opinion, and then many of my friends who have asked this morning who their favorite Trek couples' opinions were, the number one couple in Star Trek history. Some things are not going to be mentioned. Yeah, I hit transition. The Borg Queen. One off. In my opinion, she ruined the Borg. It's not really romance. She was just extraordinarily horny. But a first honorable mention goes to Vash and Picard. Yes, it's sort of a one-off. Only 2 episodes was explored, mentioned in her episode in DS9. But they were a fun couple, and it was nice seeing Picard out of his element, and then having that element of fun and recklessness come aboard the Enterprise, and him trying to be all buttoned up for his crew. Meanwhile, she's there, rolling up her legs in the captain's chair. It was wonderful. By the way, I'm in my Starfleet uniform red shirt because it's the only red shirt that I own. Another honorable mention. Just about anything in the Mirror Universe. Good God in heaven, I am such a dude when it comes to this. Intendant Kira, Empress Hoshi Sato. What'd you do to me? Oh, we barely knew you. And my last honorable mention, the throuple that is Kirk, Scotty, and the Enterprise. I mean, who was more in love with her? Was Scotty more her father taking care of her, and Kirk was her lover? But sometimes Scotty was just truly in love with the girl, the lass. I mean, I don't know. Seems very modern and open, but they were. I kid, of course, but let's face it, both gentlemen were completely in love with the Enterprise. So on to the couples that didn't work. The kind of, what the hell were they thinking couples? And it will be from least egregious to most egregious, starting with Kira Nerys, my favorite woman in Star Trek, and Vedic Bareil. At first I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. I like that. But it didn't work. They never really went anywhere with it. And in the best of the series that really took characters that you didn't think were going to go anywhere and storylines that you thought were going to be atrocious and saved just about all of them, this was one of them where they didn't. And I think while it was great drama having Bareil die and the way Kira had to go through that and the cause for him to die, I just feel like it never reached its potential, and ultimately was kind of boring, I think. The cringe that is Neelix and Kes. Oh, where do I begin with this? I mean, Kes was a character that never worked. In my opinion, Neelix was a character that seldom worked. And it's not the actor's fault. I've met Ethan Phillips. He's a cool guy, funny, nice gentleman. I have not met Jennifer Lean, and it's not their fault. Like, you get the older guy with the younger girl, and she's like 2, and he's in his 40s or 50s, the character, let alone the actors in their real ages. And I see what they were going for, but in a show like Voyager that just never fulfilled its potential in general, this was one of them. And the quicker they got them apart, the better. Picard and Anij from Insurrection. One of the many poor decisions Patrick Stewart has had influence upon this horrible love story. Anij is beautiful. Picard is hot, of course. But it didn't work. And then that whole slowing down time thing. First of all, let me just nitpick this part. This alone makes this couple not work. She teaches him in like a second, in quicker than a Mary Sue can learn something, how to slow down time. Here's the thing. They're existing. The rest of the time is slowing down. The hummingbird, the waterfall is slowing down while they stay in regular time. So when Anij was injured when the rocks fell on her, and Beverly and Worf and Data were trying to get to her to save her, and Troy were trying to get to her to save her, Picard slowed down time, not for themselves, but for the world around them, hence delaying Worf and Data moving the rocks and Beverly being able to treat her, while Anij and Picard exist in real time. Think. So stupid, and they were just a useless couple. Kira again. Kira and First Minister Shakar. Okay, they fought together, that forms a bond. And okay, once you're out of it, sometimes the bond can feel like it's something more than it is, but that worse than Belial, this just didn't work. And I love the actor Duncan Razor, I can never pronounce his name correctly, from playing Dracula in Monster Squad, shout out to the 80s. And of course I love the Non-Visitor with all my heart, but this couple just, it didn't work. Scotty and Uhura in Star Trek V. I guess I could just kind of leave it there at that. I don't know. I mean, I guess it gets lonely on the ship, but like, Uhura is fine. And from one fat man to another, Scotty, that's out of your league. I don't know. He's a genius, and he's sweet, and she's sweet, and it just didn't work. Kelvin Spock and Kelvin Uhura. Yes, Uhura flirted with Spock like once in the original series, maybe twice on the bridge, and when she was singing, he was playing the Vulcan lute. But this is just an attempt to subvert expectations. You would expect them to put Kirk with her, and while I appreciate that they didn't go that route, it would have not been on the WTF list had it not been ruined in Into Darkness, which Into Darkness ruined everything from the Kelvin universe that was even remotely good. And the first one was okay. I still don't believe Spock's going to get involved with his students. And then Into Darkness, when they're just like bickering back and forth while they're on a mission on Kronos, it's poorly acted and poorly done. I'm glad they broke them up and beyond, but then they kind of left them at a point where they might get back together. That worked, but all in all, it just was not good. But at least it led to Nyota being spoken on screen. I do appreciate that. Mikey Spock, Michael Burnham, and Ash Tyler. So forced, so unbelievable, so insincere, and just those like overacting moments mixed with his underacting. It's just, it's poor. It's really poor. It's a forced romance, and it's CW levels. And this is not the last of the CW level ones that we're going to see, including Ash Tyler again, and Lil, or Noodle. Not going to like the rest of the plot. Like I think can't make any motion with her mouth with the teeth in. Marble Mouth and Man Bun are just so stupid and so pathetic, and like so many things in STD, it doesn't add up. The timeline of when he got her pregnant, as opposed to the first season, second season, she grew hair. They chop off the baby's head, but it's not the real baby. They chop off his head, but it's not the real him. And it's just so piss poor, and I don't believe it. And I never believed Tyler's torn loyalty whatsoever. And Laurel, mother, is just a very, very bad character. It's sad. And we move on to more CW. Narek and Soji. Oh, cringeworthy. It's so bad. And yes, we're only 4 episodes in at the time of recording into Star Trek Picard. Maybe it can be saved, but right now the dialogue and the acting and just the whole forced romance that appeals to the millennial demographic you're going for, it's not believable, it's not real, and it's terrible. But not as terrible as this forced thing. What the hell were they thinking with this? You know, it's funny. When we were at a convention like 92 or whatever, my mother dressed as... Her mother was very intuitive, and she loved the Betazoids. But she loved Klingons because they had the best makeup. So she went as this, like, ambassador Betazoid Klingon hybrid thing, entered the costume contest, and I love my mom to death, but oh my god, it was not a good costume. And of course, I have to applaud by a round of applause as who wins. So maybe some writer was there and they saw that and go, ooh, War from Troy. I doubt that was it, but whatever. I like to think that. It's just bad. It was just bad. And yeah, okay, it happened in the mirror universe, and of course everyone is with every other person in the world at some point in some alternate universe. But even trying to make this a thing, I mean, it led to some good moments and all good things, but that was not very good. Rizzo and Narek again. And I know it's weird because it's not number one on WTF, and it's incest, it's possible incest. This is just weird. This is just wrong. I mean, any chance to look at Natasha Rizzo, played by Peyton List, I'm gonna take it. But it's not Jamie and it's not Cersei, and the audience is aware that you're trying to rip off Game of Thrones, and it just ain't working. When did this become a thing? Chakotay and Seven? This is the least believable couple ever. And it was almost number one on my list. I mean, I don't even really need to say much. It sucked. It was terrible. It was dumb. They had no chemistry. It's not the actor's fault. They're both good actors, but like, it was just like a quick way to just, let's tie it up. Let's make sure we have a place where Chakotay and Seven, the people have to end up with somebody by the last episode. Quick, let's just force this upon everyone. Everyone just left going, eh. Even the most diehard Voyager fans who make excuses for all the shortcomings of the show go like, yeah, nah, it didn't work. But the number one WTF romance, I mean, could it be anything else? Beverly and Ronan from Sub Rosa, the Ghost. Like, what is that episode? And I remember being in convention before that aired, and Gates McFadden was like, "It's going to be a very sexy episode with Beverly, where she finally has a romance, and it's very, very sensual." And like, I mean, the better ghost human romance was Ray Stantz in Ghostbusters, but I digress. I don't know if it's the worst episode of Next Generation. It's not, but it's pretty damn close. Now on to the list of those who I wish we had seen more of, starting with Minister Jaro Essa and, at the time, Vedic Win Adami. They were a great power couple. Evil, villainous, subversive. I love how she turned on him to save her own skin, but, I mean, any chance you have to have Frank Langella on your show, you should make him as recurring as possible. He was brilliant, he is brilliant, and she's brilliant, and together they could have caused some havoc. Archer and Captain Hernandez. Just, yes, they have a history, and yes, they flirted back and forth. It didn't go anywhere, unfortunately, and it would have been nice to explore that aspect of their relationship and see how two captains, some of the only captains that are actually out there in space, deal with a long-distance romance and having to come together back and forth. And I think they could have gone further with it, where they didn't. Oh well. New Trek, Laris and Jaban. I like them. Aside from number one, they're my favorite new characters. I mean, I joke about Rizzo, but in reality, these two are the ones that make the most sense. And I know you know more about them from the comic books, but you shouldn't have to read comic books to understand who characters are in a series. I think that's a failure of storytelling, but it is what it is. I would like to know more about them. Picard and Neela, I always forget her name, Neela Darren. This is beautiful. Of all Picard's romances on the show that were one-offs, with the exception of him in The Inner Light, which isn't truly only Picard, this is beautiful. And the flute song always brings a tear to my eye. And when they're playing in the Jeffries tubes, and just the agony Captain Picard feels when she's down the surface and the firewall is coming, and he just doesn't, and then he thinks she's being beamed up and it's not her, and just that heartbreak, that turn to walk away. And here's the captain, This is someone he might have to send to death, and he's got to maintain a certain facade to the crew, and he can't show his emotions. It's just, you feel it. Patrick Stewart sells it, and she sells it. And then the look of relief in his eyes when his subordinate beams back on the ship. What they could have done with that. And it's beautiful where they left it. I don't have any problems with how they left it, but I just would have loved to have seen them stretch it out a little bit, really delve into it. And I think that could have been great. David Marcus and Savick, first Savick at least. Even though I feel he had chemistry. Merritt Bertrick, I can never pronounce his name. Rest in peace. He had chemistry with both Kirstie Alley, who at the time I thought was the most beautiful woman in the world, and Robin Curtis. The subplot of their romance building you see in the background in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, but it was dropped, I don't know, on the editing room floor or whatever it might be, whatever decision was made. I think if they had a flew-out romance, it would have been that much more drama, and it would have been great if Kirstie Alley had come back. But not only when he dies and when she has to sleep with 14-year-old Spock in Star Trek 3, that could have added a whole nother dynamic. And part of this is his fault. That Spock is reborn, which is both a blessing and a curse in a way, with how, he used proto-matter with Genesis and whatnot. But I think that was quite the missed opportunity. I would love to have seen what they could have done with Savick and David. Data and Yar, Tasha. It always was a little weird to me. Like in Measure Man was like, we were intimate. Once? Was it more than once that we don't know about? But it wasn't more than once, because when the Borg Queen asks him how long it's been since he's been intimate, he counts back to The Naked Now. Or was it The Naked Time? I get the two episodes confused title-wise. But it could have been more. But Denise Crosby left and has hated herself probably ever since. Captain Janeway, Mark, and of course their dog Molly. Like many things on Voyager, the potential of really feeling the impact of the psychological and emotional impact of not being home, it was never fully fulfilled. It was dropped. And while we find out he moved on, and it is a heartbreaking moment, it could have been more. In my opinion, it could have been more. And I would have liked to have seen that hope kept alive for longer with Catherine Janeway, and just felt more of what their bond truly was. It was very on the surface, and I feel like it was a failing of the writing that we didn't actually spend all that much time with people missing home, really. And I think this could have been the shining example of what the characters are going through, being so far from home and wondering what's going on. Wesley and Robin Leffler. I loved the character Robin Leffler. I had a crush on her. And then, of course, come to find out that Ashley Judd tries to pretend like she wasn't on Star Trek, so I'm not showing your face because screw you. Star Trek is great, better than you. You don't deserve it. It is what it is. But the characters are great. Leffler's rules. I would have liked to have seen her more, him more, and had they continued with the character of Wesley instead of really kind of like just dropping the ball with it. I would have liked to have seen them progress. How, be it as friends or more, I don't know, or somewhere in between. I don't know, but I like those two when they were together, and I would have liked to see more of it. Worf and Kalar. Doesn't break my heart we didn't see more. We got Alexander out of it, and of course, Duras killing her was the catalyst for so much character growth and epic storytelling with the Klingon Empire. But it is something where I've liked to have seen a little bit more of them together. They had limitless potential. But ultimately, it was the right decision to kill her. Just I wish we could have gotten a little bit more of her in between the first time and the last time. Spock and Nurse Chapel. Now, maybe I'm being a little hypocritical about Spock being with somebody who's a lower rank than him. I think it's entirely different when you're an instructor and a student. I mean, not that, I find all that much wrong with that, with societal norms, but just how Spock would view things, true Spock. And so with Chapel, they always had this back and forth. Was it unrequited love on her part? Was it not? It's kind of ambiguous, I feel. And correct me if I'm wrong. But I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of the two of them together. And she seems way more like Amanda than maybe anyone wants to admit. And I feel like that's something that maybe Spock would have opened himself up to had there been more of an investment from the show to explore the Spock Chapel relationship. It's a little bit of an ambiguous relationship between Spock and Valeris in Star Trek 6. And yeah, it's a one-off, but so I'm contradicting my rules. But there was a lot to it. And it would have been very nice to see what could have been. I know originally it was supposed to be Savick and not a new character, but Nicholas Meyer only wanted Kirstie Alley, not Robin Curtis, and she just wouldn't come back. So that betrayal would have felt even worse for Spock, especially because off camera in Beta canon, Savick had his child from when they slept together on Genesis. But that's a big what if. Valeris would have been nice to have seen a little bit more of what truly was the nature of their relationship. Edward and Sylvia LaForge, we knew them for an episode and that's it. Geordi kind of got the shaft with a lot of stuff, and not just romantically, but with his family. At least we got this episode, but it would have been really nice to have seen more of them and their dynamic. Two amazing actors, Madge Sinclair and Ben Vereen. And LeVar Burton, you can't ask for better than that. That's royalty right there. So, oh well. Riker and Minuet. Now they left it in a perfect spot where you can never get that program back the way it was. She became a blank slate at the end, but it had lasting implications for Riker's emotions, hence Future Imperfect, when that memory is drawn upon as if Minuet had been a real person. I know I'm saying a lot of these things they are wrapped up perfectly, yet I want to see more of them. It would be nice to have maybe not seen Minuet herself, but touched more on how, for Riker at least, that was the second love of his life. Would have been cool. Sergei and Helena Roshenko. They were fun. Such a great contrast to Worf. Just have him on a little bit more. Come on. We only ever saw Helena again. Should have had both. Would have been great. Robert and Marie Picard. Where's Marie? I know Robert and Renee died in the fire, but where's Marie? They were a great couple. I tried to find a picture where he's got his arms on her shoulders and kisses her on the cheek at the end of Family while Renee's sitting under the tree looking up at the stars. Couldn't find it, but they were a perfect couple, and would have been great to have more time with the Picard family before they were off in Generations. Martok and Sorella. I could easily put them on one of my favorite couples lists, but there was only one episode. He mentions her again. In the end, she will win the war. What a great couple. Martok's the best Klingon there ever was. I love Worf, but Martok is the Klingon. Worf is his own thing. And Lady Sorella is his perfect foil. And they're incredible together. And too bad we didn't get more of them. All right, so Jadzia and Lenara, formerly Tobias and Nalani. The episode itself was great. It broke down barriers in a great way. It pissed people off who weren't ready to see this and who just didn't want to see it out of their own prejudice. It's a great episode. Not knocking the episode, but imagine if she had been a recurring character or had a longer story arc. Ultimately, she decides, because she doesn't have, Lenara doesn't have a little bit of Curzon in her telling her to break the rules and violate Trill society. But societal norms. But that's the whole thing about societal norms. What if, I don't know, it's beautiful because she can't pursue this, and Jadzia wants to, and so she has to distance herself. But what if she couldn't distance herself? What if she had to be in a situation where she was around Dax all the time, and that tug of war with the heart and with the mind? I would have loved to have seen a little bit more of that. But again, not a knock on the episode. It was excellent. Spock and the Romulan Commander. This is one of my favorite episodes in the original series, and I love the chemistry they have. It's for all the people who want to talk trash about how the original series treated women. This, I feel, was one of the best characters in the original series as far as guests go, and the sheer dynamic that Spock and her had. was phenomenal. And I wish that could have been something. She could have been a recurring character, much how I wish Kang, Koloth, and Kor all could have been recurring characters. Especially Koloth, I think. But I think it could have been something special. I know I keep repeating myself, but that dynamic they had, and to explore that, the sprinkle of Vulcan culture and Romulan culture, the fascination, the respect, that which they have in common and that which tears them apart, would have been an amazing dynamic to explore. And I wish that they had. Geordi and Leah Brahms. Listen, by modern standards, Geordi's a little creepy with how he handled things in the holodeck, but they became friends, and I hope that if in Picard we ever do see Geordi, he's with Leah, because they got together and they had Brett Lalandra and Sydney in All Good Things, and I think that it's something that definitely needs to happen. And the final lost potential couple, Jean-Luc Picard and Beverly Crusher. I remember growing up, the question for a long time was, is Picard was his father? Then you find out it's Jack, and everyone's okay with that. And then when they're joined, you find out that all the feelings he had, and then All Good Things is going into it. And then they dropped the ball in the movies. They pretty much forgot Beverly existed in the movies. And now the rumor is Beverly's dead off screen. I hope not. I mean, Star Trek, she can always come back. Hugh just has to. But this is a huge, huge, huge missed potential. And for my opinion, the number one missed opportunity as far as putting two beloved characters in something the audience wanted to see for so long. And it's not subverting expectations. It's just dropping the ball with the movies, which Berman did with all 4 of the films. Moving on to, if I was a writer, who would I put together? Travis Mayweather and Hoshi Sato. Both really good people, very enjoyable, good-hearted, wide-eyed, growing into this together. I feel like they could have had a nice romance. Not the end of the world, they didn't do it, but it would have been nice. B'Elanna and Harry Kim. I thought in The Caretaker, in the pilot episode, that these two were going to be the ones to get together, and I think a lot of people thought that. But I feel the opposites attract of Harry maybe being a calming influence on her, and her being someone who could light a fire under Harry's ass. And Harry Kim was one of the most dropped potential characters in all of history. Maybe the most. I haven't put together that list yet. The writers just, they had a vendetta against Garrett Wang and whatever. But rather than the two hotheads, the two spontaneous people coming together of Paris and B'Elanna, I would have liked to have seen Harry and B'Elanna. Geordi and Tasha. I know I said I would like to see more Data and Tasha, but I thought, especially in that scene where Geordi's crying about his eyesight, I think it's in the Naked Now time, but it seemed like there was a level of sincerity there that Geordi, at the time, the most tragic character, and Tasha, this is probably the second most tragic character on the show. Her handling it in a tougher way, and him being in himself and his emotions. He's very much an introvert in that way. I thought that would have been a beautiful couple to explore had Yar stayed on the show. Picard and Admiral Nechayev. Damn, they dropped the ball. That could have been a fun, flirty relationship. I mean, it was a fun, flirty relationship, but it could have been more. It could have been spicy. Oh, it's not too late. It's not too late. Molly O'Brien and Alexander Doroshenko. I put a picture of Hannah Hate of her now so that it didn't jar people when I showed like a 6-year-old with a grown man. Klingons age faster, but he is not that much older than Molly in actuality. So at some point, their ages could have matched up where I thought they could be together. How great would it be for Worf and O'Brien and Keiko to be in-laws, and Worf delivered Molly, and then she falls in love with his son. I just thought that'd be, and they're such good people, good souls, both of them. I thought that would be great. I would put them together. Garak and Julian Subotoy Bashir, Elam Garak. Look, Garak's gay. They dropped the ball. They admit they dropped the ball in What We Left Behind. Had Garrett come out to him after the wire, out to Bashir after the wire, who knows what could have happened. I like to think that by the 24th century, and yes, in the 90s, you still could have done it. There were still gay characters on TV, but Berman didn't want to do it. And, Ira admits they didn't really test it. Studio probably would have had an aversion to it. I believe Berman, I should say, would have had an aversion to it. But it's just lost potential. And he comes out, and then you have, 5.5 years to explore that. It could have been something. I like to think, again, by the 24th century, that we're accepting in our fluidity of love and sexuality. It doesn't make Bashir gay or bisexual. It just makes him human. He loves who he loves. And Garrick the same. I mean, you can classify it as gay or bisexual, sure, but it doesn't have to be one or the other. Much like with Jadzia and Linara, sorry. It's just about who you love. And it doesn't have to be labeled. And it could have been great. And their dynamic on screen was phenomenal. And yes, it could start out as just wanting to fuck somebody on Garrick's part. And then it becomes a genuine fascination. Then their relationship became sincere. And it had its highs and its lows. It was a roller coaster. It was crazy, that friendship. It was wonderful. From the holosuites to their heartbreaking goodbye to during the war to this, that, and the other thing. I mean, just so many wonderful layers of their friendship that so easily could have been more. So then you ask yourself, Sheyne, if Bashir ends up with Garrick, who does Ezri end up with? Jake Joseph Sisko. I thought in Shadows and Symbols, when they're talking at the replicator, that they was gonna get together. Oh, I wish. This is my number one if I was in the writer's room. They were closer in age, and really, it comes down to Sisko and Dax. What a great arc it would have been from Curzon being Sisko's mentor to Jadzia being Sisko's friend. Yes, she's technically his subordinate, but they're best friends. Mentor, best friends, daughter. I love the idea of Jake being with Karina in the alternate future, the Visitor. And Marta, oh my God, you the man. But Ezri and Jake could have found this genuine love and appreciation. And it would have been a different kind of love to explore, because she knows him from when he was born as Curzon, and then watching him grow up as Jadzia, and then all of a sudden being on the same page. And then Jake would have been the older one, because Ezri was trying to find her way from being Ezri Tegan to being Ezri Dax. And then Sisko would have been a father figure to her. Oh, missed opportunities. All right, now time for the overall countdown of couples from least good to best good, in my opinion. Come at me if I'm wrong. Lorca and Cornwall. Lorca was probably the best part of season 1, at least before they ruined his character, because they had no idea what direction they were going in, by Jason Isaacs' own admission and convention, until he backtracked on that and attacked the fans. They had a nice flirty relationship. It's almost lesser Picard, lesser Nechayev, had they actually pulled the trigger on that. So I know, in a way, Marlon MacGyver's and Khan Noonien Singh are a one-off, but they had lasting implications and repercussions in the Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and plus, I always assumed that was their son together, his number one and his number two on City Alpha 5, and on the Reliant, just aging rapidly because of their genetic makeup. I mean, I get why she fell in love. She's fascinated by this time period. This is her work. This is her life. And she meets this man, this powerful, charismatic man. But, she loves the bad boy. And never really looked at her as having a great mental stronghold over herself or her emotions. But Khan is a massive manipulator. And that's the way that couple goes. It still makes, while they're not one of my favorites, it still makes for a very strong couple in Trek. albeit only for one episode. But going from who many people consider to being the best villain in Star Trek history, which is not Khan, to the actual best villain in Star Trek history, Gul Dukat and Kai Winadami. Yeah, it's all in the false pretenses. She got what she deserved. I enjoy them together. They were devilishly horrible to one another, which is a perfect reflection on how evil they are to everyone else. And I know a lot of people are like, ugh, it's so nasty. And it was, but I like them together. And now we move on to Neelix, Dexa, and Brax. Oh, not Brack. Brax, the child. Yeah, the child's not really included in couples, but Neelix didn't always work for me, but he had a heart of gold. He was a sweetheart, and he got what he deserved. Happiness. Boundless love. Unconditional love. Meet a woman, fall in love in this colony, decide to stay behind, to be with his people, to help raise her child with her. She's beautiful, and I think the perfect ending for Neelix, and that's why it's on this list. Stamets and Culber. Wilson Cruz issues aside, it's a brilliant fact that finally there's true LGBTQ plus representation of Star Trek. It's way long overdue. Do I like the way the producers and the actors virtue signal and also claim that they were the first in many ways of that happening? Dr. Phlox and all his many marriages. The reading between the lines with Phlox was that he wasn't just married to the women and they had other husbands. He was married to all of them. And they never pulled the trigger on that, and that's a failing on Enterprise. But it was there. That being said, this is the first open main character couple, and they've gone through a lot of stuff. From coming back from the dead, basically, to everything with the tardigrades. They work for the most part. They have good chemistry. They're both very talented, and to me, it lacks, which is why it's not their love is not higher on the list. But that's a reflection more on just the writing in the show. Before people go out there and say, "Oh, you are prejudiced," it's not about who they love and their orientation. It's about the characters and the flaws in the writing. But they aren't far from the worst couple, but they are very far from the best couple. Sarek and Perrin. In many ways, I like Perrin better than I like Amanda. Her caring for him and being his rock during the waning years of his very ill life. I just loved their relationship and how close she became with Picard and whatnot. She was allotted in the episode Sarek a chance to grow more than Amanda ever could or ever was given the chance to. And so that's why, for me, personally, she'd be higher on the list, but I understand that it's kind of sacrilege to say anything but Amanda. No. Not that Amanda. Absolutely not. Ooh, God, no. Ooh, sacrilege. It's better. Real Amanda and real Sarek. Not this multiplicity copy of a copy of a copy that just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. True Amanda and Sarek. The depth they have in just the simple motions. It tells you a story. It makes you believe a story of a couple who shouldn't be together by all accounts and purposes, but are absolutely enamored with one another and respect each other and fascinated by one another and needing of one another and loving of one another despite their frustrations, or at least her frustrations with his inability to express it in certain ways. They're a beautiful, beautiful couple. Phlox and right now I have Fizal. The thing is with this is that I am including Phlox in all of his marriages, with the women and the men. Read between the lines, he was married to the men as well. So this, had it been today where you could explore this polyamorous structure to marriages for Denoblians, you could do so much more with it. It could be so great to explore that dynamic and to do it in a way that isn't exploiting it or demeaning it or judging it, just true Star Trek and true equality and true acceptance, even if it's curiosity, there were people are asking about it, still you could do it in such a magnificent way now. But we really only got to see Fazal, possibly others. I could be spacing right now. I do apologize. But we've heard of definitely some of the husbands and the other wives, and that whole dynamic, not just Fazal and Phlox, but Phlox and his entire family, excellent. Garak and Ziyal. Tor Ziyal. It's an odd couple, to say the least. We've had older, younger with Picard and Vosh, and Neelix and Kes, and Guinan and Picard, and others as well. Could say Dax and Worf. This in many ways screamed the most old young, and it was played that way. But there's a never underestimate the bond of shared experience that shared experience can bring about. That is a strong bond, and when you feel like outcasts, you can gravitate towards one another. And when you're young and you admire things and someone tells you you're not truly in love with this person, but you are, because it may not be the love they're used to in their age, but it is the love you have in your age. And then to fight that, to resist it, to love the person and the companionship, but never let yourself go there because of the entire situation that Garak felt, that the back and forth was just beautiful. And, you felt that when Ziyal passed away. I do wish there had been longer repercussions, effects on Garak as the series went on to the second half of season 6 and season 7. He never really mentioned it again, whereas Dukat obviously went mad because of it. I think they dropped the ball with that, which is rare for Deep Space Nine. But all in all, they were a beautiful, undefinable couple, and that's why they're on this list. Paris and B'Elanna. Okay. They're very bland for me together, but there are some really beautiful moments where you feel their love. I think more so from his side than hers, but that's, I guess, what the characters are. They're a little meh for me, but it is the mainstay couple on Voyager, and they do have their moments, and I am glad that they had a happy life together, and they made it work. They made it work despite cultural differences, despite all that they've gone through, and that's why they fall pretty much dead center on this list. Bashir and Ezri. The beauty of finally coming together. Look, I would have rather had Ezri with Jake and Bashir with Garak, but this works for the most part. It's very brief. It's believable. They have great chemistry together. In the Dogs of War, that awkward kind of inevitability. Does she feel? Does he feel? It works, man. We've all had those kind of butterflies, and then that of when if we finally get together with that person, and I like that. And they build a future together, and I just wish there had been a real season 8 to really explore that. To Paul and Trip. For me, this is a classic example of two coworkers who are forced together, find mutual respect, are there for each other as friends, probably ultimately don't belong together. But when you are together, it's powerful for that time. It's real, and you go through some real stuff, and you always have an appreciation for them. When they lost their child, it's heartbreaking. It is the culmination of everything Enterprise had built up for 4 years, that scene. And it's beautiful. And while they didn't last in that horrible series finale, they were a good couple for when they were, and that's why they're there. Picard and Guinan, that sophisticated, mature love. You're never truly together. You come back and you revisit each other. You know exactly what you are. You know exactly what you have. There's no jealousy or resentment or hatred or anything negative. It's just love on a level that is mature. Zek and Ishka. Is there anything better in this world than old people in love? Come on. Come on. It's what we all aspire to for the most part. How beautiful is it when you walk down the street and you see two old people holding hands, probably hunched over, doing their best, their shopping and everything. And it's just beautiful. And they're fun. And it helped literally change the universe. Jennifer and Ben. I do kind of wish we had more time. They could have been the other list of what we had seen more, but it's you see when they meet a version of it, and it's beautiful, and you feel the pain, both in Benjamin in the Prime universe and Mirror Jennifer of what could have been, because that love, that bond transcends, and it's when you found your true love and you lost them, and it was the building blocks for the entire series, and I love them. Kirk and Carol. Oh God, no, not that Kirk and Carol. Real Kirk and Carol Marcus. Is there anything worse than regret? What could have been? Much how Jennifer in the Mirror Universe looks at Ben of Prime and is just... she longs for what her life could have been. Here are two people who are career-oriented, driven, who had a child. The woman wanted the child. She made the man stay away. He honored her wishes. And it's not a slight on either one of them. They made decisions. He feels old, worn out. Show me my son, the life that could have been and wasn't. All of us of a certain age have felt that about somebody, and it's all too real. And then we have the couple that gives you hope. The beautiful bombshell with the ugly, off guy, but two people with a heart of gold who love and who have determination and who are more than what society, the box society wants to put them in, and they found each other. And it's just one of the most sincere, cutest, loving, fun couples that are completely believable. Even though on the surface you're like, oh, she'd never be with him. But yes, she would, because she's that deep, and so is Ram. Ram and Lita, some of the best. I'm getting into the tops now. I did not want Kira and Odo to get together, because having had been Odo a number of times, I know that you pretty much never get together with that person. Sometimes you do, though. And they made it work. To have such a trusting friendship built out of such darkness, and then it grows, and they heal together, and they're each other's counsel, and they're each other's stones. And finally, that's the chair, not me. And finally, they get together. And it's the most gentle love there is. They take such care with each other to go through so much before in their friendship, before their romance, to just have such respect and appreciation for how far you've come together, and now you've found what you've been missing romantically in someone else, and still building together, like when he's the mist around her, so she has some understanding of what it is being a great link. I feel bad for Kira that it didn't last, because he had to go home, because, I mean, come on, you know, with a shapeshifter, that's the best sex you're going to have. He can touch things. But anyway, but all jokes aside, I wept when they said goodbye. The gentle care that couple had was amazing. And then you have one of the most fun couples of all time. And several friends said that this is their number one couple. Worf and Jadzia Dax. I knew from the second they met at Quark's bar, when she said what she said to him, that loses something in translation in Klingon, they had chemistry. I think the writers didn't know they were going to have that kind of chemistry, and then they did, and it was amazing. And I know that Michael Dorn and Terry Farrell was sometimes getting tiffs on set, but the mutual respect they had for each other and the love they had for each other as friends off screen, from all accounts, fed into what they were on screen with that chemistry and that fire and that passion. And God, how beautiful it was, and how heartbreaking it was when she passed away, and how that actually had lasting repercussions for Worf going into the next season, into Ezri, into the end of his final, well, should have been his final destination, not death, but, you know, as ambassador. And then they dropped it, and no one said anything in Insurrection. Sorry, your wife's dead. No, because why have continuity, Rick Berman? That's beside the point. But, and of course, dropping the ball with what happened to him as ambassador and nemesis, that's beside the point. But as a couple, they had fun and fire and passion, and they're kind of the dream couple. They really are. And then you go on to the most real couple in Star Trek history. I mean, Nowadays, Star Trek's trying so hard to be relatable to modern audiences. They forget the fact that all you had to do was have a character like Miles Edward O'Brien and Keiko O'Brien. Miles is the everyday man. We all know Miles. We're all kind of Miles. And we know that relationships are hard work. And half the time you want to murder that person. That person saying something snarky at you. And that person makes no damn sense back and forth. Keiko's always on his case. She knew what she was getting into, marrying a military man. Yet she's always on his case about something. And then he snaps back. And they snap at each other. But then they're absolutely passionately in love with each other. And sometimes it takes months for them to get over a fight, and sometimes it just takes a couple of minutes. It's true. It's real. It's marriage. It's a relationship. And it is the most sincere relationship they are. And in many ways, they are Star Trek's ultimate couple because of that. And, O'Brien spending more time with Bashir is how many men and women alike. Many men make that mistake of spending too much time with their best friend and neglecting their family. And how many women and men alike, but especially women sometimes, can nitpick on something even though they knew exactly what they were getting into. It's real. It showed the best in men and women as a couple, and it showed the worst in men and women as a couple, while there always being a base love and truth behind who and what they were together, and that's why I love them. But for me, Sisko and Cassidy Yates. I guess being damn near 40, you hope you have a second act in life that can even come close to the first act of what you feel you lost. Or just hoping that love, it's never too late for love, for true love, for a lasting love. And while Sisko had to go, and we don't know if he ever came back. I mean, you can go into the novels or you can go into season 8, but really right now, there is no true canon. They found it. Through the lies of Cassidy with the Maquis, hypocrisy of Sisko with how she treated him, how he treated her as opposed to Eddington, being hooked up by Jake, who lost his mother, who was trying to make his father happy again, and knowing his father so well that he knew this was the right woman for him. To go from the highs and the lows to the awkwardness of dating, to the inconsistency of it when you have two people with busy schedules, to the overprotection on Sisko's part sometimes, to genuinely just falling into that this is right, and a spontaneous proposal, and what should have been an overly done wedding to a simple wedding, to the penance he had to pay, to finding out they were having a baby. Oh my God, the last scene of Dogs of War, the penultimate episode of DS9 ever. How beautiful is that moment? The perfect music and the perfect direction of Avery Brooks and the perfect acting of Penny Johnson, Gerald Johnson. Oh my God, I suck. And Avery Brooks. It's so beautiful and it's real as well. DS9 did real relationships so well, and it makes you believe that it's never too late. It's never ever too late. But of course, the number one couple in Star Trek history. No. Come on. Troy and Riker. Mr. and Mrs. Troy. William Thomas Riker, Deanna Troy of Beta Z. And I joke about Decker and Ilea just before. Obviously, we all know where Troy and Riker came from. We all know what Gene wanted. He wanted this relationship with the empath and the hunk first officer for Phase 2, and then it ended up becoming, in my opinion, much improved, Riker and Troy. You believed their love from day one, from Encounter at Farpoint, and you knew they would revisit each other, and they found a way to work together and even be supportive of each other with all the other romances they had, especially on Riker's slutty side. And that hope and that belief within you that there is that person, you know that person, it didn't work out, but it's going to happen at some point. And it did. The two best things Nemesis and Insurrection did was reuniting Riker and Troy, in Insurrection, and then them getting married in Nemesis. And they're still married, and they're happy. That episode hasn't aired yet, but they have a daughter. It worked. Over 40 years now, they've since they first got together, with so much time off in between. He just left her, and they found an understanding. Despite how much he hurt her, they found an understanding. And they've just been that couple. They've been in this back of Star Trek fans' minds since 1987, Encounter at Farpoint. For the majority of this franchise, Riker and Troy have been the Star Trek couple. And what can you say about them other than true love? Imzadi. All right, that's it. That's my list. This ran a hell of a lot longer than I thought it was going to. So happy Valentine's Day, everybody. And let me know who your favorite couples are and where I completely dropped the ball. Like, share, subscribe. Live long and prosper. Joel on true. And may your Valentine's Day, whether you're alone or with that person or unsure where you stand, be a day where you know that you're worth it and you're amazing and you are loved, even if only within yourself. Okay, bye-bye. End transmission.